Hello, and welcome to Court Games, a Legend of the Five Rings podcast, paid by for the Legend of the Five Rings Community Discord Patreon.
This podcast will focus on the role-playing game stories and lore for Legend of the Five Rings.
I'm Korvar.
I'm Gaki-Do Kaori, and we're back after a really long break. But we came here to talk about today all the news that we have had since our break. And also to talk about Gaki-Do, because why not talk about hungry ghosts right after Thanksgiving in the US anyway?
And this is part of our tour of the Celestial Realms. Please pass by the gift shop. Not that there are very many gift shops in Gaki-Do, I don't think.
I don't think so, and I don't think you'd want to take home what you brought with you from there.
Well, no. So we're going to get on with the news, which is everything that's happened since we were last here.
Mm-hmm. So it has been a very long time because the last we spoke was right before Gen Con, believe it or not. Life hit hard, and it does that sometimes. So our apologies. We will try and do a bit better over Christmas, but that's just been really difficult for me recently, so I haven't been able to do my job. Sorry. But we can talk about Gen Con now.
Yes, because you actually went to Gen Con.
Yes, I did. It was very good. Gen Con this year had actually more L5R content in it than we've seen outside of Gen Con for a long time. There were 2 separate modules being run by FFG. There was a bunch of Heroes of Rokugan. There was book signings, and there were new material from the FFG booth that got demoed. Unfortunately, very little of that has actually seen the light of, hi, can I put my money on it and spend my money on it? But
a lot of stuff happening in the future.
Yes. So our good friend Kikita Animaru has a great review of his experience at Gen Con that he did as a podcast associated with this with Court Games a little while back. So we'll provide a link back to that in our show notes. But if you really want to know the details of all the new material and so on that was available at Gen Con, you can check that out if you haven't yet. My experience with Gen Con was really good, but I spent all my time doing RPG modules, just back to back as much as I could. So I went to the Last Rider module, and that's for FFG 5e. And I did Storm Eel's Rest, which was the Adventures in Rokugan free RPG Day module. And also did Heroes of Rokugan a whole bunch as well. So I can give some little reviews on that.
That sounds pretty packed.
It was very packed. I did do a nice Avatar The Last Airbender module on Sunday with my family as well, because
that's cool.
That RPG is hilarious and fun, and definitely a good one to do with your family if you want to take a break from the heaviness of complex questions of honor and so forth in L5R.
Okay. So to begin with, what was your experience with The Lost Writer? How did that go?
The Lost Rider, I really enjoyed the module a lot. It is set in the City of the Rich Frog, and it nests in and has a guest appearance by, remove your, block for 30 seconds here if you want a spoiler on it, and remove the spoiler on it. It has a guest appearance by Daidoji Shin, who can help you with your shenanigans if you find the right way to talk with him. The party is set either to go looking into some smuggling of gaijin items or searching for a lost rider, as the um, title suggests. And Shin happens to be around, and we had
Yeah.
a very, very good time with it. I ended up making a great sacrifice for the cause of duty, and then having another party member say, "Nope, you're not going to make the heroic sacrifice," and hit me over the head. But that happens sometimes.
Yeah. I personally think that for I think that counts for honor purposes, in my opinion, even if you didn't actually get to do it because you were going to, then someone stops you. So I think it's fair, I think, you know. But that can be a really cool moment, yeah.
It was. It was just a little funny because I was playing a courtier, and the other party member was a bushi, and he just clocked me in one shot before I could do the heroic thing. It was very funny. But so it was. I had a good time. Anyway, it was fun. It was a good group.
Mm.
Um, City of the Rich Frog is a good environment to play in because you have all these different clans interacting.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to see some actual material for the RPG.
Maybe
Uh,
for the unicorn book? I don't know. Hope
yeah,
Springs.
one can only hope. Mm, it does. Um, so that was the Legend of the Five Rings 5th edition
Mhm.
module you did. You also did an Adventures Rokugan one with the
Yes.
Storm Eel's Rest. So how did that go?
Stormy Eel's Rest was really good. You are a bunch of interesting characters going out to, uh, in our case, check on a problem with a island on an island with some monks on it. They're having a problem, and
Mm,
the previous mission out there didn't come back, so you're going to check it out for all your various personal reasons, because each character was really well defined. I really enjoyed the characters that they had set up for Stormeel's
mm,
Rest. I played a Asahina Shigenja for that, and I had another character played their love interest Yojimbo, and so there was like
yeah,
interpersonal party stuff going on, at least with it too. So I really appreciated that. There were lots of non-humans. It was specifically created that way. I have to say, I love the Adventures in Rokugan ritualist rules.
right.
They worked so well, and they were so flavorful because I only
Mm,
had like 3 spells, 4 spells maybe,
yeah,
but, um, because you have this favor that you could use to
yeah.
enhance the powers of your spells, and you got free favor if you were set in different settings. So one of the spells the Asahina Shikinja has was basically a move water spell, right? Not very
Yeah.
impressive by itself, but
Mhm.
can be, if you pour enough favor into it, a tidal wave that really does some serious damage on people, right? If you are
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
standing in water, you get free favor. So this means that
Right.
spell's not very impressive on land. Maybe a little
Mm,
sploosh or something like that. But when you're
yeah.
standing in the water, in the ocean, you're like making big waves that are knocking a bunch of people around, or bad guys around. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
so flavorful. And then, another spell that she had was Path of Inner Peace, which doesn't
Mm,
do much healing of fatigue or anything. It doesn't do as well, but
yeah.
when you're on holy ground, in a shrine or something like
Right.
that, it does much better. And that's just so
Nice.
flavorful for Rokugan. "Let me get him to the shrine so I can heal him."
Yeah,
You
yeah,
you
yeah,
s I
yeah.
mean, that's just very, very flavorful. So, I mean, if there's a 6th edition, I would learn some lessons from that and bring that back into,
Yeah, yeah.
5e for sure, because it means that the Shiginja can be really powerful when the Shiginja is supposed to be
Mm,
powerful, right? And not
yes. I've yeah.
not all the time. So it gets that balance between Shiginja doing the Shiginja thing and letting the other party members shine. Like, when you're not standing in water or not on holy ground or whatever, you
Yeah. Yeah, we've just got your spells, but
right.
you can set up the situation. See, I'd heard because I've not had a chance to look at it or play it myself, but just hearing about the ritualist and how it was working, that really did sound very, very good to me.
Mhm,
And so I'm glad one of us has got a chance to actually play that and then like have opinions
mhm.
because it does sound excellent. Because I think an issue with Legend of the Five Rings, the system, the various systems that have been used for it, is that the Shigenja class, the fluff says they're priests, but the mechanics have always said that they're wizards.
Right, and they've always had a problem with outclassing everybody else because of it.
Yeah, yeah. But I just from hearing the favor mechanics, I thought that sounds like they've finally caught something there. And I would love to see, yes, like exactly like you said, I would love to see that backported into the L5R system. If anyone's interested in doing homebrew and happens to have both of them, both Adventures in Rokugan and L5R5E, I think that might be an interesting project for someone to do. How might that work?
I think it would be very hard to convince Shigenja players to
Yeah.
adapt to this system. It would take a complete rewrite of Shigenjas, and because it is a
Mm.
decrease of Shigenja power, especially universal Shigenja power, as opposed to power in the setting for the spell, um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they it would be a hard sell for Shigenja players to use. But I liked it, and the Bushi were very strong, and balanced
Mm.
to it, in my opinion. They did a good number on the opponents. There was, we got all the way through, we won. I never felt over it in this fight, it felt overwhelmingly hard for the specific lengths of time that it was supposed to, if that makes sense.
Right, right, right.
A
Yeah.
and everybody felt very effective in our group. Now, we did not
Nice.
have we had a person playing the, pilgrim,
Mhm.
so that was cool, and uh the Bushi were effective. I don't think we had anybody really playing a courtier, but I've played
Right,
courtier
right, right.
before um in Adventures in Rokugan, and I really liked the class too. So
Yeah.
I just think they did a really good job of Adventures in Rokugan in general, and I don't think I don't think you should ever mix it with regular D&D 5e. But
Mm.
if you keep it to itself, it is very well done.
So the final thing you did, L5R related anyway,
Uh-huh.
before you did Avatar: Last Airbender. Heroes of Rokugan,
Yes.
because they've been running for a long time. It's kind of a living campaign sort of
Mhm.
thing's been running forever,
It has been running
haven't they?
forever.
And so this is their first foray into 5th edition,
Yes, and it is
isn't it?
a brand new season for them as
Okay.
well. So
Mm.
so Heroes of Rokugan go in like 5-year seasons where they
Right.
play they play modules across a period of about 5 years in one storyline. So it's
Mm.
you are all playing the by storyline I mean these are the events happening in the empire starting off here and ending here. And then
Yeah.
there's a time reset or character reset. Everybody has to make new characters and we start all over again. And
Mm.
their new season looks really good. Um I enjoyed being able to come in from the beginning. I definitely think that that's the way to go. They actually started they have they have at least one, I think two conventions a year outside of Gen Con that is just
Right.
weekend in Rokugan, where they just do this. It's not necessarily associated with a con.
Yeah.
so it had started beforehand, but they gave lots of opportunities to make up the introductory games. So I was able to play
Okay.
the intro scenario, which is a must for this season. So if you get the opportunity to go to either one of their conventions, you can find it on their website, or go next year. In general, it's best to try and get in on these things as early as possible. So, yeah, definitely recommend. An awful lot of people in it are playing Ronin. 5E apparently for people who are trying to power game through. Ronin offer some very nice perks because of this, being able to do the low skills and not worry
Yeah.
about honor, because you will lose honor or glory on if you unmask in Heroes of Rokugan. It does have some slightly
Yeah.
unique rules, so that is the other thing to be aware of. They do some rules to help keep game balance and help game masters kind of all be the same, because a module might be run by 5 different game masters, so they want to make it
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
repeatable. But I had fun. I enjoyed my character.
That's when, like, what more can you ask?
Yeah, I'm playing a basically an undertaker. I'm playing
Okay.
an Asahina Shikinja who's supervising all the Barakumen who are burying all the dead people,
Right,
because
right, right,
all
right.
these battles and stuff, there's an awful lot of dead people that need taking care of. Someone's gotta supervise that work, so that made me much happier to do that instead of more complex politicking. It was fun.
Mm, that sounds really
Alright,
good.
and you have been reading books?
I've been reading books. I got the chance to read Soul of Yuchiban, which is now out and available. This is a follow-on to Heart of Yuchiban, and is essentially a this is kind of these two books seem to be a lead-in to the Tomb of Yuchiban module adventure set thing for Adventures in Rokugan. And so this is continuing the adventures of the people who went into the tomb in Heart of Ichiban, and essentially the fallout and the continuing machinations and scheming of Ichiban himself. And there are some interesting revelations about who and what and how.
Mhm,
And I liked the characters. I liked the story. I liked the way it was all set out. It is set in some like it's set in a specific time period, and I cannot remember the number of the Hantei Emperor because my memory is terrible. So it's conveniently all in the past. So this is stuff that happened in the past,
mhm.
but it still gives you a flavor of who Yuji Van is and why it's a bad idea if he might want to stick his nose into Rokugan's kind of society again. I really liked it. I recommend it. If you liked Heart of Ichiban, Soul of Ichiban is more of that, and it does come to a really nice, satisfying
Yeah,
conclusion.
I was able to it is currently out, and I was able to pick up a copy at Gen Con too.
Mm.
Um, it is, I would say it should have been combined with Heart of Ichiban. Um, they are much better
They are one
together
story, yeah,
than they were than Heart of
yeah,
Ichiban was by itself. So
definitely, definitely.
so it's better as a pair. I think it it would have been kind of good if they were able to come out as one book, but I'm happy to pay for both books and make sure you read them one after the other.
Yeah, I mean, Heart was very clearly not the end of the story.
Right.
It was kind of leaving on a cliffhanger, and what happens next? And I had thought that this was going to be part of a trilogy,
Mhm.
but I think essentially Tomb of Yuchiban is the third part.
Mhm.
But you get to play that is I think what they're aiming for.
Well, so have you read Tomb of Ichiban yet?
I have not,
Okay.
and probably won't.
Okay.
unless it just happens to fall in my lap.
Now,
But yeah, I'm just not in a situation where I would get that.
no, it's
So,
okay. I went ahead and got Tomb of Ichiban, and have read it.
hmm
It is Adventures of Rokugan source book, adventure module, but it also has the Blood Speaker class as a class in
right.
it, a player character class in it. It is not a sequel to Soul of Ichiban. It is high. You
Hmm.
can't basically you start feeling reasons that eventually make you
Yeah.
want to go find the Tomb of Ichiban and go in it. I mean, that's pretty much the
Right.
setup.
Okay.
In terms of Tomb of Ichiban, now I haven't played it. I just read through it.
Hmm.
I did
Yeah.
like it, but this is personal taste. It is very much
Hmm.
it feels to me very much targeted to the kind of people who would like to play a blood speaker
Right.
or
Okay.
would it gives it's very light on possible heroic reasons why you might want to go into the Tomb of Ichiban. It has some,
Ah.
but you might
Okay.
want to go in there to retrieve your family sword or something that's more heroic. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
mostly it's targeted towards, "Hi, you want unlimited power." And to find
That's a very interesting take.
here's
That's
where you
a
go.
very interesting take. I wasn't aware that, like, I don't know of very many, certainly not D&D style modules that have that. It's like we are kind of assuming you're playing terrible people.
I think
Okay.
that they were trying
That's
to go
interesting.
for you can play this as being heroic or terrible, but because
Hmm.
the terrible is so because they have a blood speaker class in there and they say how you should
Hmm.
interact if you're terrible.
Yeah.
Enough there for if you are terrible that it feels like the whole module is, "Hi, come here if you're terrible and you want to, follow the
Yeah.
footsteps of Ichiban and, dig the dead guy out. And oh, here's this horrible thing that you can take with you because that's awesome to unleash upon the Empire." And
Oh, and so on.
and
Ooh,
so on. So it was not to
wow.
my taste because I don't want to be I don't want to play that way. You can say I don't want to play the hard decisions.
Hard decisions is one thing. It's actively playing evil people is that's never been my thing.
Right.
But I get it that yeah, I do wonder if there's a certain amount of it's Adventures in Rock Gang, which is basically Dungeons and Dragons. Here's a dungeon.
Mhm.
We don't do we need motivation beyond that? For most heroic people, oh, it's a dungeon. There you go. Brilliant. But you may need to kind of, well, okay, if you are Bloodspeaker.
Yeah, it does have a little bit of preview information, like a small adventure that kind of goes
Right.
behind before the adventure that's not in the dungeon, but most dungeons do have that too. So,
Oh, okay.
and let's face it, it's the Tomb of Ichiban, so there's a good chance if you are a very
Yeah.
heroic character and you mean it, you will be dead.
Yeah.
Because that's
Mm,
how Tomb of Ichiban often works. There's lots of opportunities to
yeah.
sacrifice
Yeah.
yourself for the party. But anyway, not necessarily to my taste, but definitely to other people's taste. Because I know that, like,
Yeah.
Sebastian or Seabass, who is our host for the Discord, would love that kind of game. So if
Mm,
it's to your taste, enjoy. Uh,
yeah.
and
Sounds cool.
you read Market of 100 Fortunes. Did you get the sneak preview on that?
I got the sneak preview. One of the lovely advantages of having a podcast is the case you get sneak previews. Market of 100 Fortunes is the third and sadly last of the kind of well, it is a series of 100 things. They even call it out in the book, which is hilarious. So basically, we're continuing on from Game of 100 Candles, where Asako Seken and Agasha no Isao Ryotara are now kind of they've gone through that, and and in fact, they're still dealing with repercussions from the first book,
Mhm.
Night Parade of 100 Demons, and they're kind of okay now. Now we know how everything's settled down. We now know what's going on. We're heading off back into Draglands to actually live our lives. When all of a sudden, a note from their old ally sort of in quotes, I have to say, their old ally Sayashi, the Bake Neko, or spirit demon cat, they get a note from her. And this leads them on a bit of a detour down into Cranelands and an ancient market where interesting things are going on. And they're thrust into a whole new supernatural mystery, which is clearly just what they're fated to do.
Absolutely.
It is absolutely lovely. It's a fantastic book. The characters are fantastic. They latch on in order to get to where they're going. They kind of hitch a lift essentially with a Scorpion Emerald Magistrate who is delightful. She is amazing. She's one of the best characters. And I would almost say this book is like, if you really want a very, very silly overviews, help, help, I'm trapped in a Ghibli movie.
That sounds wild.
Like seriously. It is lovely and great fun. There are great characters, and the way everything that has been kind of it's all woven together from the stuff from the first two books, and it all ends up mattering and being important. And I thought it was really lovely. It is unfortunate that just due to the economics of it all, Mary Brennan is very unlikely to be writing
Mhm.
anymore, just due to the way it all works out with publishing. But we have these books; they're amazing. I thoroughly recommend the whole of that series. So, Night Parade of 100 Demons, Game of 100 Candles, and Market of 100 Fortunes. They are my favorite of the new books that have come out. We have been blessed with some amazing Legend of the Five Rings books
Yes.
in this new, since it went over to FFG. Seriously, they're just amazing, and I love them. And it's out. Global ebook is February the 6th, and that is also when the US paperback is on
Mhm.
sale. So I absolutely recommend rushing out and getting it as soon as. And the UK paperback is April
I'll
25th.
wait a little longer.
So that's all 2024.
We have been blessed with some really great books. We've also been blessed with a beautiful hardcover book called Rokugan: Art of Legend of the Five Rings. That was available at Gen
Yeah.
Con. I was able to snag a copy then, but it's coming in on sale in the UK December 7th. It's already on sale
Yeah.
in the US. Now it's just lovely, straight up the best art from the card game.
Mm,
So it's a coffee table book. Very pretty pictures. So, you can pick that up if you want.
mm. I mean, L5R has been just awash with great art in the card game and in the RPG books and all sorts, and having it all in one place. I've only been able to see the like previews, but it looks gorgeous.
It's pretty good. And then I believe that there's a fine art print of a map of Rokugan that has been put out and is available for people to purchase too. So you can convince people to put that in your stocking if you
Mm,
like.
absolutely. I mean, I don't think anyone is listening to this podcast. I rather suspect you all know how beautiful the maps have been for R- Legend of the Five Rings, fifth
Mhm.
edition. So yeah, who wouldn't want a great big huge one for their wall?
Anyway,
And I think we've got links to all of this stuff
in our show notes.
in our show notes.
Or we will. We will by the time we put this
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's all our news. I'm not saying it's all the possible news. It's all the news that I know and
No.
can remember at this time. So, we don't have any updates, unfortunately, on the unicorn book, which is the one that's coming out next. As I said,
Hmm.
Onimaru has more of the stuff that was available from Gen Con to talk about that. But
Yeah.
if we keep talking about that, we'll never be able to talk about Gaki-Do.
And who doesn't want to talk about Gaki-Do, the realm of hungry ghosts? So let's do let's do that.
Right. So this is, as Kuvar said earlier, a continuation of our Celestial Realm series. The realm of Gaki-Do and the realm of Toshigoku are kind of mirror realms of the other. We're going to talk about Gaki-Do today. That is the realm of the hungry dead. These two realms are realms of punishment. They are kind of created for
Hmm.
souls that weren't evil enough to be reborn into the most extreme punishment or hell or Jikoku in L5R, but they have done great
Hmm.
misdeeds or followed dark desires in life that cause them to not be ready to be reborn as a human in their next life, because being a human is considered pretty
Yep.
good on the whole celestial hierarchy scale. Uh,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
not
it's
bad,
not
apparently.
permanent. You work out your karma there for a very, very long time, and you get it out of your system, and then you get to
Yeah.
be reborn into another high life, generally a human life, where you get to have another go at trying to do this humaning thing until you do better. Um,
Yeah.
so that's kind of what these realms of punishment are. And you can find the equivalent in uh, Tibetan and Japanese Buddhism for at least Gaki-Do. So we can talk about that one.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Um, Obviously, it's actually based off Buddhism. Uh, it's Preta in Sanskrit, which is the original language of Buddhism. Gaki in Japan. These are the spirits of there who have too much desire, gluttony, avarice, selfishness in their hearts when they die, um, as defined by specific varieties of Buddhism, such as Tibetan Buddhism. It's not, yeah, and as was stated, they've not done so much evil that they will be sent to a hell for punishment, but they've also not earned a higher incarnation. I think it's also that it's the specific thing that they've got desire in their heart, and that's what drives them. Even if they didn't do evil as such, it's still that's what's
Yes.
weighing them down. So as they can reincarnate as a human once they've worked through all this and had their time um, as a Gaki. So they reside in the realm of hungry dead. That's where they reside. Um, Although they often seem to be able to escape, and they are able to return to the living world, and like they're still generally seeking out whatever they are hungering for until they're driven away again. So, I mean, in a sense, that's kind of why we have Gaki-Do. Well, it's of interest. If they all just spent all their time in Gaki-Do, nicely secluded away from us, would we have even heard of them? But no, it's because they somehow are able to menace us uh, in the Legend of the Five Rings
Mhm.
real world, Nigendo. So you get the things that might lead one to become a Gaki are like greed, being driven by desires for wealth or power. Also, things like lust or gluttony, being miserly. You're not giving. I'm not letting anyone have any of my money. It's all mine. And so not being generous to guests or those who ask for help. So those are all things that can, if you let that rule your life, you can end up in Gaki-Do as a Gaki. And the living can choose to burn offerings, so fake money or other gifts, in order to feed souls, either as substance, either as sustenance for their journey, because we've talked about the journey of the dead as they go through Mado and all that. So sometimes that is what it's for, but it's also sometimes done to appease them so they don't suffer too much from hunger or other desires, because the worry is that that spirit may become a gaki if it is not appeased properly on its journey through the underworld.
So we kind of talked about how humans become gaki. But what are they becoming? They're as their punishment.
Yeah,
These humans become a spirit who is endlessly craving something, and it's usually something really unpleasant or ugly. So it could be toenails or
yeah,
hair. It could be, uh, you know,
yeah.
bodily fluids of different kinds. It could be uh, rotten food.
Mm,
The idea is it's a punishment. You're not craving the same thing you craved in life. You're craving something else horrible. But the whole point is to try and get you
yes,
past craving, right? Trying to get the spirit past craving. Um,
yeah,
in books in Japan, and China associated with Buddhism, they're drawn as or depicted as beings with teeny tiny mouths, often a needle mouth, and big, huge,
yeah,
bloated stomachs. Or they look like starving and wasted humans with, you know, disheveled hair and, long claw-like fingers. So those are how they would look. In L5R, you see more of the starving and wasted human kind of appearance. Um,
yeah, yeah,
said, humans sent to Gaki-Do. Well, we've already talked about that. So that's what they are, and they are going to not, in general,
yeah,
be. They are more reasoning than some other kinds of spirits, oftentimes, because they will wheedle
yes,
and they will plead and they will beg and they will do anything to get the thing that they want. Some spirits are just incoherent rage. That's more on the other side of the spectrum. Gaki-Do
mm,
spirits are more intelligent, but endlessly driven. They cannot not be selfish, if that makes sense.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Gaki-Do itself is described by uh, the Tibetan teacher Chökyi Drakpa as a grim place of rocks and charred tree stumps where the words food, drink, or comfort have never been heard. The bodies of the preta do not find anything to eat or drink for months and years on end, emaciated like skeletons and lacking the strength even to stand. So that's how Gaki-Do is described in the real world, and that's kind of it's not exactly the same as it is in L5R though.
mm, yeah. So the the version of Gakido in Legend of the Five Rings is described more as ramshackle buildings, a vast, sprawling slum of a city with stinking air, and Gaki that they're toiling mindlessly in jobs like they're held in life, or they might be rummaging for any kind of scrap of anything they might be able to find. It's endlessly boring and endlessly, they're endlessly hungry. So, unsurprisingly, some ghosts are kind of driven mad by the tedium. The Gaki could, in theory, escape fairly easily, but they would have to put aside their desire, and they're often too ravenous to even think to do so, which is the what we've been discussing already. That's what they need to do in order to progress. The problem is, can they? Can the individual put aside their greed and desire?
So Gaki-Do is ruled by Mazoku, who are the kind of red and blue ogre-like beings that are MO's assistants in the afterlife. The
Hmm.
Mazoku primarily work to prevent them from leaving. Um, some human souls
Yeah.
to turn into Gaki before they can even be judged by MO. if that desire is so strong at the point of death, they can't even they aren't even died. And at that point, they never get to Mado. They wander back into Ningado and haunt the living that way. So they didn't even escape from Gaki-Do after having gotten there. They just never made it there. Gaki-Do is really, really overcrowded, and it borders on Ningado. So the Mazoku live in these really tall buildings. They oversee the slums. The ghostly blocks of the city fade into graveyards and dark and scary places that kind of mirror them in the world of the living. The highest of the Mazoku is the Hungry Governor. The Hungry Governor is a female Mazoku who hunts down Gaki who have actually managed to escape the um, the confines of Gaki-Do, and sometimes will ask the living for their aid in finding one.
Yeah, that can you just imagine that happening to a standard is you standard player character. There's suddenly this enormous kind of demon-looking woman saying, "Right, I've got a job for you." What? Who are you, and why are you in my room? I
That
think
or
I
you
really
know,
like that.
or
That could be
worse,
a fun.
it happens to a local noodle shop owner. And now the noodle shop owner is going to the player character going, I have no idea what to do, but the hungry governor is going to eat me if I don't do this. Can you help me?
Yes,
I like that. And you get the cute sidekick as well.
plot hooks. There you go. Yeah, and an interesting twist to Gakido, which might not be particularly obvious, what is that you may find Daikoku, the fortune of wealth, in Gaki-Do. Daikoku maintains an estate in there where he essentially gives sustenance to the starving and shows them mercy, essentially offering an example of the kind of charity that they should have shown when they were alive. This can cause conflicts with MRO because that might be seen as diluting their punishment somewhat. But I'm sure Daikoku would argue that some hearts do get turned because they realize by receiving charity how important charity is and how important giving is, and that is something that they should have done in their previous life and something they should do in their next life, which may help them get closer to escaping and getting reincarnated as something better.
Now, we've talked in our previous celestial realms about this idea of a jealousy, which is kind of the influence that a realm has on a person who is not from that realm uh, to uh,
Yeah.
to start making them more like that realm. Bring it into being with that realm. So the jealousy is hunger.
Yeah.
The longer people who are trapped there remained, so if you were PCs for some reason end up in Gaki-Do without a lot of protection, the more, it'll start out with them feeling
Hmm.
hungry and then more hungry and then really turning it into desire or hunger beyond all else. And obviously, if you fall
Yeah.
into blind desire, you could be trapped there forever, just like you could potentially be trapped in any other realm. So it's a very unpleasant one.
Yeah.
No.
That would not be good. So obviously, you're immediately thinking, this sounds like a great place. How do
Tourist
I get there?
agency.
Maybe you're not doing that. Yeah. Gakido, visit the realm of absolute awfulness. Now, the obvious way of getting to Gakido is to die with greed in your heart and being sent there by MO, or possibly becoming a Gaki on your way to Meido. Not recommended
Or
because
you
then you're
could
Gaki.
be sent there by MO for some other reason. Like you ran into MO in your tour of Mado,
Yes.
visiting some other celestial realms, and MO said, I need you to fetch me something
Yeah.
from Gaki-Do. So that works too.
Yeah. If you, for some reason, have to get there yourself, because maybe, again, you need to rescue something from Gaki-Do or something such, there are places where the barrier between worlds is a bit thin. So places where many of the hungry dead have been entombed, or some kind of site of great desire that leads to a great vice. Um, for an example, a monastery where the monks grew lazy and gluttonous and ended up with the local people, the peasants, rebelling, and the temple, gets attacked and burned down. That site might become an entrance to Gaki-Do.
So you probably wouldn't volunteer to go there, but you can stumble upon it because, as I said, they're right next to each other. It's right next to Ningendo.
Hmm.
And so if you were at like this site of a
Yeah.
terrible place like this unholy monastery, for example, where there were many of the hungry dead
Yeah.
nearby or had died there, that could be enough to make it so that you could stumble onto Gaki-Do. However, you have a serious problem if you do that, so get out as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to stumble on than, say, Chikshudo, but
Yeah.
you could potentially stumble on it in
Hmm.
that fashion. Uh, More likely you'd pass through it briefly. So you'd be walking
Yeah.
along and then you'd go through a little bit of it and then come out the other side.
Yeah. And you could always be taken there involuntarily by a Mazoku. We talked about, we'll talk about some of that in Adventure Hooks. A powerful Shugenja could send you there, either because you need to go or because they're a terrible person and they're trying to get rid of you. And possibly a Gaki could drag you there. Maybe even if the Gaki is being banished and they kind of get their hooks into you and drag you with them. That might be another way you get.
But in any event, you don't want to stay there. That's definite. You do not want to stay in Gaki-Do a minute longer than necessary.
No,
It's not a good place to
no.
be. You can get out a couple of ways though. You could wander out a similar way you went in. Like if you went through a very brief period of like a little tiny tendril
Yeah,
of Gaki-Do, you just walk in and walk out potentially. Um, or you can intentionally seek
yeah.
getting out. Now, if you are trying to get out, as we said, the lines are thin. You go to the,
Mm,
you know, through the edges of Gaki-Do, you could come out, but you would have to put desire behind you. So if this was a PC, I would say this requires a lot
yes.
of meditation checks and maybe potentially
Yeah,
sacrificing
that sort of
your
thing.
equipment, things like that, sacrificing things that were important to
Yeah,
you among your earthly properties in order to get out. Um,
yeah. Might be one of the things that's easier to do if you've not spent much time there because the jealousy
right.
of Gakido hasn't had time to work on
So
you.
the longer you are there, the harder
But
it gets. Um,
yeah,
so
yeah,
just ideas. If ever you're trapped in Gakido, try going to the edge as far as you can and think take everything off and just focus on your inner peace, but don't go there in the first place. Is better. You could
yeah.
also
Think for your
potentially
thoughts.
appeal to
No.
Daikoku. The Fortune of Mercy may have ways to be able to get you out. So if you go find his estate and you know explain to him the situation,
Mm,
he would be able to help you get out. So
yeah, yeah. Might he, and you never know, he might need you to do something for him, which neatly drags us into Adventure Hooks.
that's
That
okay.
wasn't very neat. I don't care. We're going into Adventure Hooks because it's all very well to talk about these places, but what are you going to do? How are you going to use that in your game? So we already talked about one before, which is the Hungry Governor appearing to the party maybe as a ghost or as a dream or a number of things, asking for help to corral a hungry Gaki who has escaped Ningendo and is in the area. Possibly one of them is carrying something that the Gaki craves, and that's why the hungry governor's picked this group in particular. Um, and that's also how you can tailor it to a group, because you can decide if one of them is particularly wealthy, maybe it's someone who's got you got a Gaki who's after wealth. If someone keeps going on about their lovely lustrous hair as a character trait, like a Daidoji with their lovely white hair, then a Gaki who hungers for hair might be an interesting foil
Definitely.
for them.
Or if someone isn't scrupulous about their cleansing rite ceremonies, Rocky that hungers for blood might seek
Yeah,
them out
yeah,
to follow their gruesome trail to consume what they leave. Things like that. Let's
yeah.
see. Another possible Gaki related adventure for your PCs to go on. The Burakuman preparing corpses in a
Mm,
village find that the fingers and toes of the bodies that they seek to bury are missing. They are seeking out local magistrates. They tell the local magistrates, but the local magistrate turns away in disgust and does not listen because they think the body parts fall off all the time and are not interested in talking to Burakuman about body parts missing from bodies because that's gross.
mm.
You know, that's definitely not a samurai thing to talk about. Um, that's in one village, and then in the next time,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
beggars who are caught out at night in the cold begin showing up complaining about losing fingers and toes. And when that happens, maybe the party, maybe the doctors in the, people who are healers in the area or so on, think it's frostbite. But who needs a natural explanation for these things when you can have Gaki? So when you get to the city proper, then maybe
Yeah,
some of the lower caste in the city, that might be geisha, begin reporting waking up with fingers or toes missing. And that suddenly has all of the samurai wondering what kind of inhuman monster could do something like that to them, and what would they use them for. So you could start at any place along this chain, but of course what it is a Gaki who has a hunger for fingers and toes and are escalating as they get closer and closer to a city and getting stronger and stronger. So you could either have the PCs follow them from the village to the city, or start at the city and have to follow them back to the village to see where it began and figure out what Gaki this was and how to solve the problem.
yeah. I Another possible adventure is that one of the PCs has expressed a desire for a certain object or a certain experience, such that they've put their searching for that object above their duties as a samurai. So this sounds very much like their ninja is related to this in some way. So one day when they meet a monk who tells them, "Oh, here is a place where you can find what you seek. It's in this long abandoned graveyard deep in the forest." Possibly they don't state right immediately where it is, because that might be a bit of a clue. But they said, you need to follow this path, you go here, and there you will find what you seek. Unfortunately, as they enter the graveyard, as they travel deeper and deeper and deeper, searching for this object or the experience or what they're looking for, they find that this is a gateway to Gaki-Do. This monk could either be a terrible person who just went, "How can I make this person's life difficult? I know, I'll trick them to go to Gaki-Do." Or they might be someone who realizes that this character is beginning to become obsessed by desire and is thus trying to warn them before it's too late. In either respect, the player character now has to consider, can they free themselves of their desire
That's really cool.
and thus find their way home?
I've got one more potential adventure hook for you.
Yeah, I like that
So
one.
we'll do this. A special kind of jade or some other mystic substance is
Yeah.
desperately needed for the survival of a clan or the city or the empire
Mm.
in some fashion when it's faced with a threat that only this special substance can defeat. There are many, many written records of it,
Yeah.
but there's no more of this stuff, whatever it might be, anywhere in the empire, and there has not been for centuries. The greatest expert of that substance, whose readings the PCs have been studying all along to learn how to solve this terrible threat, believed he knew of a stash of where it could be found, but he died. He destroyed his own life in his desire for this particular mystic substance. In his writings, he claimed to know of that stash that he could potentially reach of the stuff, but he died before he could get to it. So now, in their great hour of need, the PCs must find him and travel to the realm where his spirit lies and see if they can convince him to give them the secret to finding them. But then they'd have it, not him. He is a Gaki now, and he hungers. So how do you negotiate with this scholar to give up his secret when all he does is hunger? So that's another kind of reason for a adventuring party to do it. So a couple of adventure hooks. Um, so hopefully you never have to go
Yeah.
to Gaki-Do.
That should be good for getting on with. Yeah. Yes. Yes. And if you ever do, I hope your journey is very, very brief.
That is it for this week. We will have another talk about the realm of Toshigoku on a different time. But we wanted to give a shout out to some alternate podcasts. We have Last Province has done a couple episodes, I think 2 in the meantime. And of course, Onimaru's
Hmm.
podcast as well on Gen Con is out there. So, you can take those in and enjoy those and the other great L5R material out there.
Hmm. Yep. We should give a call out to Fortune and Strife, which is our affiliated actual play podcast. And seeing as you're on it, why don't you tell us what's happening?
We are about to go into a very large battle with the forces of the Caliph of the Burning Sands. Who are hunting us down for killing his favorite. We've kind of it's been a while coming, but we're doing the slow lead up to the battle to try and escape and get
Mm,
back to Rokugan and warn them that there's a giant army potentially on its way. So that's what we're up to. If we don't die,
yeah. And so you should go and check that out. But you should also check out our friends at D20 Radio, which is a huge collection of RPG related podcasts. So anything you'd be interested in RPG terms, you'll find on D20 Radio.
our content is funded by the community Discord Patreon. That supports some of our editing costs for our podcasts, and it supports our websites where you can see and store our longer term information and keep some of the tools active that we use on the Discord. So if you find it in your heart, you don't have to, but
Yep.
if you find it in your heart to throw a dollar or two our way, it's all going to straight editing costs and software licensing. It's not going to any of us. We're just
Yep.
doing this out of love, but we still have to pay to keep those things up.
No.
So, but you can find us there.
Yeah. So online, you can find us at our website, which is courtgamespod.com. On Twitter, we are twitter.com, or x.com, I suppose these days, but twitter.com/courtgamespod. And if you do want to support what we do, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/courtgames.
But that is it for us this week. This is Kakita Kaori. May the fortunes favor you.
And I have been Korvar. And until we meet again, keep your jade handy.